Alright guys, today we're gonna be reacting to JD Vance Annihilates Margaret Brennan Champagne.
And
in Ohio and in Michigan.
that did not
and
happen
I think
in
that,
the Trump administration, though.
Well, it actually did happen in the Trump administration, Margaret.
Manufacturing jobs came back.
You did have significant onshoring. You had significant increases in people investing in factory construction, but it takes time, Margaret, and that's one of the reasons why I think that we need a second term of President Trump is this stuff is not going to happen overnight.
Yeah, I know what's going on here.
Ohio Republican Senator JD Vance. Good to have you here.
Morning.
Good morning to you. So you were at Mar-a-Lago recently, you were in New York at the Manhattan courtroom, you were in Ohio alongside Donald Trump at a fundraiser. I know you keep getting asked whether or not you're going to be vice president or not, and you said you haven't spoken to him about it.
Sure.
But we're also looking at a pretty tight race in the Senate. So I wonder, do you think you're more helpful to him in the Senate or in the White House?
Well, I'll let him make that decision ultimately. I think he knows how to best run his presidential campaign. And what I've said is I'm happy to be an advocate for the agenda in the United States Senate. I think that's the best way for me to help the people of Ohio. I'm certainly interested in helping him in other ways if that's what matters. Because look, Margaret, we have to reelect Donald Trump as president. The contrast is so extraordinary between higher inflation at home and war overseas. That's the Biden record, and the Trump record of peace at home and prosperity. That is an incredible thing to run on, and importantly, it's an incredible thing to deliver for our country. So I think we need to help Donald Trump get across the finish line. That's why I've spent a fair amount of time with him the past couple of weeks, helping him raise some resources, showing up in support in New York. But it's all about getting him elected president. I actually don't care that much who the vice president is because Trump's ultimately going to govern.
Well, you call yourself one of the most pro-labor Republicans in Congress. Sure. You were out there with automakers who were striking a few months back, and you've been very broadly supportive of tariffs. Why are you opposed to President Biden then putting tariffs on batteries and electric vehicles and other technology from China? It seems inconsistent.
Well, I think there are two things here. First of all, many of the tariffs that Joe Biden has endorsed in the last couple of weeks are tariffs that he ran against in 2020, but now that he sees that Donald Trump is leading him in the polls, he's adopting the Donald Trump agenda. That's not actually being a good policy president. That's shifting on politics because you know you're about to lose.
Well, he's targeted these pretty directly.
There's a second thing, Margaret, that's really important here is Biden's entire agenda, such that it exists, has been about protecting green energy jobs at the expense of the industrial heartland. If you were in Wisconsin, Michigan, or Pennsylvania, you are not being empowered or enriched by Joe Biden's green energy agenda.
You know what's crazy? I used to do Uber when I came here to Menachia. And man, it really hurt. Listen, I did Uber because I didn't really need it. I was just basically waiting for my next job because I got hired. But I started doing Uber just to get some income coming in. And I'm telling you, folks, what I'm saying is that it was sad to see a lot of Americans doing Uber, man. I was waiting for some buffalo chicken wings and buffalo wings. And I remember that day, it was 5 p.m. And there was like 60 drivers. All sizes. There was even people that used to have money. Now they're doing Uber because they don't have money. I mean, it was sad. A sad picture. There was like 60 or 65 drivers just waiting for their food. It was unreal. And that's when I started understanding how bad the economy is. Try to look for a job right now. You can't. The competition is so high because there's not a lot of jobs. It's insane. We're not doing good, folks.
So him applying tariffs on the green agenda stuff, does it help steelmakers? Does it help natural gas workers? Does it help the heart of the American economy? The answer is no, which is another reason why Donald Trump would make a much better president.
Well, you know, it's what Chinese electric vehicles are like less than 2% of the market. But the point here is
but it's a lot of the
all
supply.
Tariffs, though, but to your point, all tariffs, which you seem to be in favor of, they're inflationary. So how is the Trump-Vance idea here going to help make things more affordable for people if you're putting taxes on goods they're purchasing?
Well, we have to take the hit. I'm going to be honest, folks. We have to take the hit. We sacrificed generations of just importing crap stuff. So it's gonna look bad. We have to take a hit until things level up. I don't want to keep buying stuff from China. I mean, I just simply don't want to. But here we are.
I don't necessarily buy the premise there, Margaret. If you apply tariffs, really what it is you're saying that we're going to penalize you for using slave labor in China and importing that stuff in the United States. What you end up doing is you end up making more stuff in America, in Pennsylvania, in Ohio, and in Michigan.
That did not happen in the Trump administration, though.
Well, it actually did happen in the Trump administration, Margaret.
Manufacturing jobs came back.
You did have significant onshoring. You had significant increases in people investing in factory construction, but it takes time, Margaret, and that's one of the things, one of the reasons why I think that we need a second term of President Trump is this stuff is not going to happen overnight. The American heartland wasn't destroyed in 4 years. It's not going to be rebuilt in 4 years, but you really need to double down on this policy of bringing good jobs back to the heartland and, more importantly, making stuff in America. We have to be self-reliant as a country.
We haven't heard a lot of specifics. I mean, there's been ranges of a 10% to 60% tariffs. Do you know what the plan is?
Well, look, I'm not going to speak for Donald Trump, but I certainly agree that we need to apply some broad-based tariffs, especially on goods coming in from China. And not just solar panels and EV stuff. We need to protect American industries from all of the competition. Because
this lady is just another talking point. She don't know what the hell she's talking about. You think she knows what the hell she's talking about? Let's be honest, folks. Do you think a lot of these news anchors, they know what they're talking about? They're literally telling her what to do in the little headphone thingy that she have in her ear. You can tell.
Margaret, the reason
she's not even
China
listening.
beats us, it's not because they have better workers. It's because they're willing to use slaves to make things there. We want American workers to make this stuff at good wages.
I want to ask you about some of the things you've said about American universities. I know you've been very critical of them. You gave an interview in February. You said the closest conservatives have ever gotten to successfully dealing with the left-wing domination of universities is Viktor Orban's approach in Hungary. I think his way has to be the model for us, not to eliminate universities, but to give the choice between survival or taking a much less biased approach to teaching. He seized control of state universities and put them in foundations that were then run by his allies. Is that what you're advocating be done in the United States?
Well, Margaret, what you're seeing in the United States actually is that universities are controlled by left-wing foundations and not controlled by the American taxpayer. And yet the American taxpayer is sending hundreds of billions of dollars to these universities every single year.
I don't want taxpayers controlling education necessarily. Is that what you're advocating?
You dumb. Let me calm down. So we should just give them money and have no saying what happens in university. We just simply give them money. Okay.
For federal government?
Margaret, what I'm advocating for is for taxpayers to have a say in how their money is spent. Universities are part of a social contract in this country. They educate our children. They produce important intellectual property. They get a lot of money because of it. But if they're not educating our children well and they're layering the next generation down in mountains of student debt, then they're not meeting their end of the bargain. I think it's totally reasonable to say there needs to be a political solution to that problem.
Well, America's universities still attract talent from around the world, as you've went to one of America's very top schools.
Look, there's still good things about American universities, but it's going in the wrong direction, Margaret.
But Viktor Orban in particular, as you know, I mean...
Bro, just own it. This is the only thing, and I think this is going to come with time. JD has to say, like, when she throw that back at her, when she throw that back at him, he had to say, yeah, but I'm the exception. I'm simply an exception. I'm not the one going to just study women's social studies, you know, and just waste my time. He had to go back and say, like, own the fact that, yeah, but I'm just an exception. But let's face it, folks. There's so many universities in this country that make no even sense. Personally, I think we should just eliminate the program, the fundings, and let them just compete. Let them compete, and these problems will fix. And some of these schools will probably close, but it is what it is.
He rewrote the Constitution. He neutered the courts. He has tried to control the media. These are not necessarily conservative principles. So why would you want to mimic him?
Well, look, I'm not endorsing every single thing that Viktor Orban has ever done. I don't know everything he's ever done. What I do think is on the university principle, idea that taxpayers should have some influence in how their money is spent at these universities, it's a totally reasonable thing. And I do think that he's made some smart decisions there that we could learn from the United States.
Well, he was just welcomed at Mar-a-Lago. And as you know, Leader McConnell just spoke out on the floor of the Senate this past week after Xi Jinping visited Hungary. He's trying to broker trade deals. They're brokering trade deals not just with Russia, but with Iran. Orban, because of this, McConnell said it should be a red flag for anyone seriously concerned about competition with China. So why take any policy cues from a
What?
man and a country and a strategy cozying up to America's adversaries?
Well, look, Margaret, Hungary is a nation of 10 million people. America is a nation of 330 million people in the most important economy in the world. I don't think that we should take every cue, but I actually have to reject the premise here, because why is Viktor Orban getting closer to China? In part because American leadership is not making smart decisions. We are pushing other nations into the arms of the Chinese because we don't make enough stuff, because we pursue a ridiculous foreign policy very often. We have to be more self-reliant. I don't like China. I don't like that China has stolen a lot of American jobs. The reason they've done it is because American leadership has made bad decisions. That's our fault, and that's something we can fix as Americans.
You've talked
Okay,
a
he
lot.
did very good. Shout out to JD, very good. You do. But she's here, lady with the yellow. Her job is to just ask questions, but her job is to listen. A lot of these anchors, they don't even know what the hell they're talking about. They become good at recitating a lot of talking points, but they're not they're not good at listening.
About the need for the United States to pivot to Asia and let the Europeans focus on Europe. But Xi Jinping is focusing on Europe. Why would you cede influence? Because you've really been opposed to helping Ukraine in its fight. You've said a lot of things that are suggested that you just want to pull back.
Let me address that point, Mark. First of all, I think the reason that we have to be smart in Ukraine is we don't have a strategy. What is Joe Biden trying to do? What is another $60 billion accomplishing that $120 billion hasn't? We have to have smart strategy to spend American taxpayer dollars. But on this,
80% of it funds the U.S. defense industrial base.
She's not listening.
And China. And
She's not listening. She's not listening.
Look, the reason Europe has become weaker is because they've deindustrialized. And why have they deindustrialized? Because they pursued a green energy agenda following the lead of the Biden administration, and that necessarily empowers China and Russia. We need to acknowledge that.
And not only that, they're spending a lot of money to just keep their socialist system. And then you see their military expenses is less than 4%. It's very low. Very low, because we're defending them. So the United States defending all these European countries while they fart above their asses. And here we are, the little poor American, just defending their little castles on top of the mountain kind of thing. I don't like that, man. I simply don't like that. They need to start paying. That's my opinion. They need to start paying. Otherwise, we just let Russia do his stuff.
It's our decisions that are making these countries stronger. We need to fix that, not whine at countries that have 10 million people.
Or people just like cheap stuff no matter where they live, right? So and they look
Wow,
for cheaper.
like a
providers.
straw
They
man.
have cheap energy in Europe, and they don't have it because of the policies of the green energy lobby.
I want to ask you about abortion.
Straw
because
man, huh?
We see it in our polling as so motivating. But President Trump has adopted this position that it should be states that control abortion access. You said back in 2022 that a proposal to limit abortion access after 15 weeks of pregnancy was something you would support, and some minimal national standard. What is the minimum national standard that you want the federal government to have on abortion?
Well, look, Margaret, I think that first of all, we have to acknowledge that political reality is, I think, really motivating a lot of these considerations. What Donald Trump has said, which is very consistent with what I said during my own campaign, is that the gross majority of abortion policy is going to be made at the state level. And I actually think if you compare his view of saying, look, this is a tough issue, we need to let people debate and decide this very tough issue.
We're not ready.
In this new environment.
Listen, I'm all for just banning abortion, completely. But to be honest, folks, we need to earn the respect of a lot of Americans. I will say we need to at least get 80% of Americans on board, at least 80% minimum, to even consider banning abortion. And right now we're a little bit weak in that area. We need to do more groundwork. And we can at least get 80% of the opinion of the American thinking the abortion should be illegal. I think we could pass it on federal level, but first we have to earn the states, because then it's a stronger decision.
where it's been kicked
Right.
back to Democratic
But you want
legislators.
a minimum federal standard.
But Margaret, compare this to the Biden administration approach is we want Christians to perform abortions and we want American taxpayers to fund late-term abortions. I think the
That's not
Trump
true.
approach, that is
That's
absolutely what
prohibited
Democrats
under
have
the
endorsed.
Hyde Amendment. But so you don't have a minimum national standard.
Margaret, what I've said consistently is the gross majority of policy here is going to be set by the states. I am pro-life. I want to save as many babies as possible. And sure, I think it's totally reasonable to say that late-term abortions should not happen with reasonable exceptions. But I think Trump's approach here is trying to settle a very tough issue and
very smart.
actually empower the American people to decide it for
Yeah,
themselves.
very smart.
Senator Vance, thank you for joining us
Thanks,
today.
Margaret.
Nice job.
What he said about
Nice job. Nice job. Nice job. Nice job. I think when it comes down to the topic of abortion, leave it to the state. Let the state decide. After the state decide, let's say again, getting to that 80% of the state deciding. Let's say at least from the 50 state that we have, let's include at least 47 or 45 state deciding, hey, abortion should be illegal. I think we have the nation. But right now, with the little 27 and 28, no, we need to move forward. We cannot be lazy. Right? Let's just earn some of the battles, right? Let's just focus on the state, because then after that, it's all momentum. Then when it passes the federal level, it's easier. But let me know what you guys see in the comment section below. I would love to hear your guys' opinion. I'll see you in the next one.